In my opinion, the Founder Journey is the best personal development program out there. Can I get a hands up if you agree? You have to dive into untapped territory you would never have explored without becoming a founder. Fortunately, our guest is here to help you grow from newly minted first-time founder to a world-class CEO. Stay tuned for the Startup Life Live Show. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Startup Life Live Show. I'm your host, Ande, Lyons, startup coach to first-time founders. And after raising 4 businesses of my own, I now help newly minted business owners sleep through the night by giving them peace of mind. And for those of you watching live, thank you for carving out time to up your founder game. And those watching the replay, I am so thrilled that you're here and looking to improve your founder skill set and mindset. Please be sure to click the like button wherever you're watching. And those watching on the replay, be sure to not only like the video, but subscribe to my YouTube channel. I'm so grateful. Now, I have to tell you, our guest is the serious, unbelievable, amazing Alisa Cohn. And I'm so excited to tell you more about her. You know, she's been coaching startup founders into top-notch CEOs for 20 years and was named the top startup coach in the world and a top 30 global guru for startups in 2020. Now, this is a one-time startup CFO, a strategy consultant, and current angel investor and advisor. And she has worked with startups such as Venmo, Etsy, the Wirecutter, Mack Weldon, and Tory Burch. She has also coached CEOs and C-suite executives at enterprise clients such as Dell, Hitachi, Sony, IBM, Google, Microsoft, Bloomberg, the New York Times, and Calvin Klein. Okay, so she knows what she's talking about, and we're going to wring out every piece of advice that she has today. I'm so excited to introduce you to the one and only Alisa Cohn. Welcome to the show, Alisa Cohn.
Hi, Ande. So nice of you to have me. Thank you. It's great to be here. I love your energy.
I am so grateful that you came on and joined us because, you know, we all need to continue to tap into our capability. And a lot of times, folks, you know, you could have gone your whole life and not known what you're learning now as a founder, right, Alisa?
Yeah, that's really true. I have to prevent mistakes.
Exactly. Yeah. So I want to let everybody know that we are live streaming on LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Twitch, and Periscope. How cool is that? And I'd love for folks to pop into the comment threads where you're hailing from. I'm hailing from Boston. Alisa, where are you hailing from today?
I'm from New York City.
Woo! All right. We'd love to know where you're hailing from. And if you are a founder of a business owner, which is why you've tuned in, please put the name of your company and the URL in the comment threads. I'm going to bring it right up here and we'll do a little spotlight on you. Let more of the world know what you're doing, your mission, your vision, and your beautiful business right up here on the screen. And Alisa, we're going to talk a little bit about networking later on, but I have found since the pandemic, these live shows are a terrific way for folks to network. You can meet people in the comment threads, whether it's a live stream show like this or a webinar or a Zoom. Put it out. Grab your LinkedIn URL and share it with the folks and get theirs. And if they don't share it, go look them up on LinkedIn and say, hey, I saw you on the Startup Life Live show. Let's connect, because you never know where your next collaboration is going to come from. So I just wanted to throw that out to everybody before Alisa and I got started talking about her extraordinary background. So, Alisa, you've been at this for nearly 20 years. I'd love to know, how did this idea to put your shingle out as a startup coach? How did it pop into your head? And of course, how did you find the courage to leave that paycheck behind and dive into entrepreneurship?
I know that's such a big question. Yes to all that. So after business school, I went to Price Waterhouse and joined their so-called fast track to partner program, 5 years to partner. And in the middle of that, I just realized this is not for me. PwC is a fantastic firm, and it was a great place for me to learn a lot of skills. But ultimately for me, it just felt too big for me to really have an impact. And I had this idea in my head that was important to me, that the work of my hands mattered. Like, where did that even come from? I don't know. But a voice in my head said to make a difference was my mission and calling, and that it was important to me that the work of my hands mattered. So I left PwC and I thought about, what do I want to do and how am I going to figure it out? I went to a conference as a volunteer, and at some point that we went to this training, and then at some point somebody came in and they said, okay, now Cheryl Richardson's going to speak to the volunteers. And I thought, can I leave? I know. I was like, well, who? I don't know who this is. Is this mandatory? Can I leave? So Cheryl Richardson, my very first executive coach, she's like a life coach, spoke to the volunteers and music played. I thought, what is that? That's what I want to do, because I could tell she could make a difference. And I could tell that her kind of signature presence, her persona, was like mine in terms of the way people obviously gravitated her to help them solve their problems.
Oh my gosh. Who knows Cheryl Richardson? She lives up the road 20 minutes.
Oh, that's right. I forgot. She's a Boston girl.
Oh my gosh. And her husband, Michael Garish, back probably about 20 years ago, had a book on when working out isn't working out. And my husband is chapter 9.
Oh my God. That's amazing. Wow.
But we are all fans of Cheryl Richardson in this area and throughout the world. I can't wait to tag her on this, Alisa.
Yeah. Please do. I just want to say she really inspired me. And I was like, I'm going to become a coach because of seeing her. And specifically, I saw her live coach in front of 500 people. She said, okay, does somebody want to stand up now and get live coaching? And I thought, what is going to happen now? And someone stood up and she live coached them for 20 minutes in front of 500 people. And I just thought, I want to do that. Like, I knew that I could do that. It was really intense. And then I joined the startup world. As you said, I was a CFO of one startup, the head of strategy of another startup. I took coach training and all that. The startup world kind of went kerplooey at a certain point. And I thought, now I'm going to become a coach and not just look for that same job that I keep getting. That's what I did.
I got to tell you, that is so much better than doing where you were with Price Waterhouse. Bless their hearts.
But that
5-year track, folks, you basically have time to get your dry cleaning, and that's about it. You know, it is a hard track. And I just love the story of you seeing that serendipitous moment when you saw Cheryl Richardson on the stage and you just felt it to your core.
Yeah.
Now, this is how I want to be fully expressed in the world. Love that. I'm just going to say hi to a few folks from Laguna Beach, the one and only Cody Oakland. Oh, so good to see you, Cody. Doing really fascinating things in the startup world, just saying. Little, I think it's in stealth mode, but we can't wait to hear more, Cody. And Theodore Stump from Phoenix, thank you. A film producer at 62. Let me tell you, can't be caged by your age, folks. And the glue that holds the startup community together here in Boston. Steve, we're going to answer these questions, Steve. Thank you. Since we've all made the great digital migration, what are some of the unique effects that have impacted you most as people-centered professional? I love that. We're going to get to that after we get through a little more of these opening questions, because, I love to find out how a founder found their customer segment. So you could have been a coach to all types of people, beauty industry, massage therapists. You decided to go with the startup world, startup founders, and this is really post the .com world, right?
Yeah.
Well,
I was in Boston myself, and I started by coaching individuals, as in, like, I went to vendor fairs. I just did everything I could to work, just get some coaching hours and coaching practice in. And then I had a friend of mine who said, oh, you're a CPA, right? I said, right. And she said, my client EMC is looking for someone to help them teach their business acumen curriculum. And I thought, I'm going to teach their business acumen curriculum, and I'm going to work my way into the leadership curriculum. That is definitely going to happen. And that's exactly what happened. And I worked very closely with EMC, first as a facilitator and leading different kinds of trainings and offsites, and then ultimately as a group coach, and then as an executive coach at EMC. And I was very close with them for about 14 years before they got bought by Dell.
Oh my gosh, folks, you have to understand EMC is really big here, right off 495.
Yeah.
And just, an employer of many dear hearts in this area. And a lot of people got to do incredible things there because they were a very progressive and inclusive company, right, Alisa?
Oh, absolutely. And they did a lot of, it was like such a learning opportunity for me because they started really as this sort of, Boston-based, Hopkinton-based business. And then they really were at the forefront of, offshoring and outsourcing. And then they began a journey of buying a whole bunch of companies. I remember one specific senior executive who said, we want to be the best acquirer there is out there. We want to be known for our acquisition skills. So I learned a lot about the playbook of acquisitions and help them integrate a number of the acquisitions they bought. And through that process, I became more acquainted with startups yet again. So remember, I was a startup CFO and the GM of the Boston office and the head of strategy at different startups. And I had the startup bug in me anyway. So I began to be exposed to these startups. I worked with a lot of large companies. Then I moved to New York. And inside of New York, we were really starting to build our own tech and startup ecosystem. And that was about 12 or 13 years ago. And I want to be a part of that. So I got myself enmeshed in the startup community. My first startup that I really focused a lot with, spent a lot of time with, was Foursquare, with Dennis Crowley and that whole team. And then ultimately, I just, really fell in love with startups. And I think that I have an affinity for founders and an affinity for what it takes to be successful inside of a startup.
Why do you think that is? I'm curious.
We all have our natural swing in some way. I appreciate someone who's able to peer into the future and see something that you can't see, that others can't see. I appreciate the pluck and the drive. I see that in myself. I appreciate the grit and the try again, and failure is not an option. I love personally being able to do a whole bunch of different things. And inside of a startup, you can do a whole bunch of different things. And I think that's where I found my comfort zone. And then I think also when you work with a large company, you can't really steer the battleship. You can make small adjustments here. The work you do has impact with the person you're working with and his or her team overall. Over time, that accrues to the company. But with a startup, it's immediate and it is direct. The impact you can have is like right there.
That is so rewarding. I have to tell you, I coach in a unique way, which is basically people call me, I'm an on-demand coach. And I love that, frying pan in the fire, and they've got a specific question because in a specific event just occurred.
Yeah.
Whatever that is.
Definitely.
And we get to dive in right away. And you're right, the impact is amazing. Plus, being able to be part of that vision, and also being able to help them navigate in an area that that is going to take time as they build out who they're going to be as a leader, as they bring in more team members and help them step more fully into their role. Thank you for bringing such eloquent words into why you love coaching. I want to say hi to an incredible tech product dev goddess, Adriana. So good to see you. Southern California. Yay. And a local Boston guy. Hi, Al. Good to see you. Gosh, that's so great when folks swing by. And Danielle, you're amazing. You're doing remarkable things. I love that about you. Talk about a great startup founder. So it's always fun to see folks. So there you were, and you, before we get into founder journeys and coaching and all, I just want to what were some wins that you had along the way that helped you get better at what you were doing, and some fails? Because, that's the only way we really end up winning is through some good whoopsie daisies.
Yeah. Well, listen, I think my wins happen every day when I hear someone who calls me or emails me and says, I'm still thinking about what you told me 8 years ago. Or they'll say, your voice was in my head. So then and they took this great action they wouldn't have done in the past. I just spoke to a founder literally this morning, and, we talked about sort of they're on a rocket ship. And so we just raised a bunch of money and they're in a great place, and they still have a lot of work to do to get, to build the infrastructure, the corporate infrastructure they need to. But like, look how far they've come. So just even spending the time thinking about what have they kind of taken on and brought new skills, that's very rewarding. I think for me, when I see one of my companies be successful, like the transformation at Calvin Klein was really rewarding. Certainly
in what way? What did you do with Calvin Klein?
Just that, well, I can't talk that.
Oh, right, of course.
What I did. I know exactly. But, sort of there was a new leadership and a new life and spirit inside of there. And that was very, very transformational from when it comes to both being able to impact the culture, but then also be able to impact the business, those kinds of things. But I do want to point out, failures. I think failures are so important because I think people always show their success resume and it looks like, oh yeah, for her it was easy. So just to say, I remember vividly a meeting that I had that, pretty much after the meeting, it was even in the middle of the meeting where my executive sponsor came over to me and just said, it is not working. We're going to end this meeting early. And it wasn't like, and we feel so bad. It was like, and it's your fault, right? So like having to deal with that and in the moment is not easy. Also, I remember I was facilitating a session one time, and I don't know what happened. It was a sort of a teaching facilitation, and I had the wrong playbook about what we were learning. So I was thinking, like, I thought we were doing A. Actually, we were doing B. I had brought all the materials for A, brought none of the materials for B. And I thought, I wonder how I'm going to get out of this one. Like that happens, right? That totally happens. And to say nothing of the fact that when I first became a coach, I walked into the gym and burst into tears because I was thinking like, what will become of me? Am I going to be able to do this? Right. So I think all of us have at moments, we feel overwhelmed with self-doubt. We feel overwhelmed with this feeling of it's going to be so hard for me to do this. I don't know if I can. And overcoming that personally helps me help founders overcome that as well.
That's right. And I find too, it's a constant journey. Worthiness is a lifetime adventure.
Yeah, that's
and
true.
There's a wonderful TED Talk, Alisa, by a billionaire entrepreneur out of Australia, Michael something. And but it's a wonderful TED Talk for founders about imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
And I mean, here's a cashed out bajillionaire, right? And he still talks about when he feels founder doubt. And so it happens, folks, and you're not alone in feeling that in different stages because you're overcoming. Each day you're overcoming something more and you're like, okay, that's easy. And then you're confronted with a whole nother layer of, oh my gosh, new level, new shovel, right?
That's right. Right. And new tools and skills that you have to learn.
That's right. So it's ongoing, folks. All right. So let's begin with the founder journey because you have coached top founders, exciting, new, fledgling startups who got their money and were ready to soar. What are the typical challenges you've seen founders face when launching a new business, when they're newly minted as a founder, whether they're growing locally or expanding globally with their vision?
Well, I'm writing a book. It's called From Startup to Grown Up, Building Your Business While Building Your Leadership. And really, I divide that into 3 sections: managing you, managing them, and managing the business. And all of the challenges of founders and founder CEOs fall inside of the 3 categories of managing you, managing them, and managing the business. And the truth is that managing you is the hardest part because you've got to deal with your own emotional self-control, even as imposter syndrome is coming in on you, even as, bad things happen and good things happen. This happens every day. We gain this amazing new customer and sign a 7-figure deal. Then this key executive leaves the company, or we lose this customer, but oh, great news, we just had a breakthrough in the product. This happens all the time. And you have to learn how to manage yourself inside of an emotional maelstrom, which has just, these minute and very frequent ups and downs.
The roller coaster ride, everybody, right? One minute you're clicking with the champagne, the next minute you're crying into it.
So true. Yes.
It's just, and it can flow over a few hours. 1 minute is a disaster, but
Right.
I love that. And this is what you're doing, folks, as you're exploring your role as a founder, is learning how to manage the uncertainty that is a guarantee about your business. And a great way to do that is how? Is it by staying an observer? What can you share about how founders can keep that, not feeling it's all personal, and sort of step out and look at the business as a delicious problem they need to solve versus, oh my gosh, I've screwed up everything?
Yeah, well, that's a great question. And that's the $1,000,000 question. I think there's a lot of tools. So first of all, it's about getting really clear on your own self-awareness, getting clear on what your strengths and weaknesses are, what you're great at, what you need help with, and also getting clear about what triggers you. So for whatever reason, you have your own makeup, and something that bothers you will not bother other people, and something that bothers other people will not bother you. So you've got to get very clear of that yourself, and then find time every day to reflect on what's going on. How does it make me feel? Where am I in my emotional state right now? What energized me today? What made me feel down today? And then what am I going to do about that? So it's about reflection and reset multiple times per day. It's about having ways to handle your stress and tension, like meditation, like fitness, like, different activities, as in like being with friends or being with your spouse. Those kinds of things help you de-stress for sure. I definitely think everyone should have a regular fitness program to help you just keep yourself together. And it's really great for stress reduction. And then ultimately to choose tools that help you in the moment. So in a meeting, when it starts going off the rails, I'm just going to sink down with it and lose my temper or withdraw, I'm going to label what's happening. What's happening is this meeting doesn't seem to be achieving our goals. Let's take a 15-minute break and recalibrate and come back in. That would be a good tool to have as a phrase for a leader to have to sort of help recalibrate in the moment.
I love that completely. In fact, I may even say that when you have these little pieces of information, because your brain can kind of go into a freeze when you see everything going to heck in the handbasket, right?
That's
and
right.
You're going, oh no, what do I do? Oh, wait. Okay, Alisa told me that when that happens, this is what I can say. And boom, it brings your critical mind versus your emotional reaction versus response to the situation. I love that.
Yeah.
That is terrific. And those are the kind of tools. This is why you should not be doing your founder journey alone, folks. Mentorship matters, coaching matters. And, someone like Alisa is really showing us how that can help you improve your day and make it be more fun than scary. Daniel's got a great question here, Alisa. How can you deal with the loneliness when you are a founder?
Yeah. Recently, one of my founders said, it's not just lonely, it's also exhausting, right? Because everyone wants something from me all the time. And I would suggest, 3 things. First of all, once again, you've got to find the wherewithal inside of yourself, and you've got to learn tools to self-soothe. That might be fitness, that might be meditation, it might be prayer, it might be, video games for some people, to find resources inside of you to soothe yourself. The second is to find people outside of your company to commiserate with. So fellow founders are very good. Again, a spouse, if that's the kind of spouse that you have, not everyone has that kind of spouse. But the idea is that finding other people who will commiserate with you. And then the third thing I would say is that, I just think that accepting that you're going to have some level of loneliness helps you soothe the loneliness. And what I mean by that is not everybody's cut out to be a founder. Most people aren't. So recognize that you're in this kind of, really small percentage of people in the world. And what that means is you're going to have times where nobody understands you. So kind of make peace with that, because also it brings a lot of gifts, but it does at times bring this loneliness.
Okay, I'm feeling this moment right here, folks. Absolutely. We are going to stitch that on a pillow. Tools to self-soothe. You have to know how to self-soothe yourself. Oh my gosh, that I know is going to be my favorite moment, because I've never heard anybody say that before, Alisa. I've never heard anybody give that piece of advice. I certainly learned it as a parent, when the baby in the crib and having to learn to self-soothe. It's a huge gift you give your child as a parent in how to handle situations from day one. But I never thought of it as a founder, finding those things to help you go, okay, this is it. This is part of the journey. I'm one of the small percentage of people who can get through this. I've taken on this because I can do it. I'm uniquely qualified to do this. And then finding ways that you don't end up destroying the relationships in your life. Alisa, a lot of times founders, they can get so hyper-focused on their problem solving, and folks, you don't become a founder and start your own business because you want to be your own boss. That'll never happen. You're going to be the boss of a lot of other people.
So true.
But what can happen in relationships with beloveds, good friends, family is like, well, if you're not part of the solution, get out of the way. That hyper focus can take over. And sometimes that hyper focus is going to help you in your innovation and other skills that you need to have happen. But what advice do you have, Alisa, when the founder can get overly focused so much on the business that they start pushing everybody aside?
Yeah, by the way, that is a real risk, and that is a very difficult thing. So I would add that founders are 30% more likely to have issues around depression and anxiety than their counterparts. So that's really interesting. The fact that, like, does being a founder make you lonely, depressed, and anxious, or are you the kind of person in my person, and there's for some reason that also lends you to being a founder? It's kind of a mystery. But either way, you have to be aware of that risk and put decision rules into your life that help you solve for that. So to your point, it's like you're hyper-focused, you're working all the time. You may not have romantic relationships. You may not be giving to your romantic relationship. You may not be giving to your circle of friends. You need to have decision rules around, I'm taking one day off a week for sure. I'm giving this much, time for sure to my romantic relationship. One of my founders said to me a few years ago, the biggest gift you gave to me? And I was like, what? He said, date night. Okay, well, whatever it takes. Yeah, you need to have date night, to keep that romantic relationship. The last thing I want to say is the founders I work with are also sometimes raising young families, and they're going to want to figure out how do they allocate time for that, like it's also part of their job, which it is.
Right. Oh my gosh. Here's the challenge, folks. You can be so excited and really enamored by your business, and you can fall in love with it to the detriment of things around you. So what Alisa is saying about putting into place these parameters, I take Sundays off no matter what. Of course, I needed to recover. But even when I was raising my other 4 businesses, I had to schedule that time, and I had certain evenings and I had other boundaries in, because you become depleted, and it's exciting and it's crazy and it's so wonderful. And the hustle culture that is perpetuated out there where you must be 24/7. I had a .com. And let me tell you, that was the culture. You slept at your desk. You had a couch so you could be there 24/7, and everybody celebrated that. Oh, yes. No, it was unsustainable. Alisa, I was interviewed by Wired for that particular topic. I said, this culture was founded by young males, not people with families. No way is this ever going to work. I want to say hi to an extraordinary friend and incredible founder, Jeremy Quant. Jeremy, would you pop into the comments what the name of your new art tech business is, please, and the URL? I want to bring it up. I want to show it to Alisa because it's so cool. And here's an incredible artist. Alisa, Mike does these Instagram stories where he starts drawing and showing people how he creates these amazing drawings.
Amazing.
Yeah. So very good question, Mike. So much of what you're sharing can also apply to artists as creative founders. What's an additional piece of advice that you can do for our creatives? Because it's a whole
It is. It's the whole thing, and it's a good question. I was the executive coach and the career coach for the Artist Toolkit from the Boston Center for the Arts back in when I was in Boston, and I learned a lot about artists as entrepreneurs. And what I advised them to do was to treat their art business as a business. They can treat their art as a creative pursuit. That's wonderful, but they have to still bring discipline and rigor into the parts of it which are a business. Part of that is also habits and routines. And, sometimes you don't feel like sculpting or you don't feel like drawing or whatever. Going to the office, your studio every day, getting your laps in, right? Getting your work in every day is part of the discipline that entrepreneurs bring to the table. And I think that often artists will be a little uncomfortable commercializing their, or like, my work should speak for itself. No, you've got to be the chief marketing officer. You've got to be the talent. You've got to find those roles that will work for you, that will also help you see your own business as a business. But I think what he was also talking about was the other tools I think still apply. You're going to get a lot of rejection as an artist. You're going to have a lot of bad news as an artist. You'd learn to self-soothe. Other people want to understand your work or your work ethic or kind of what you think about. So you have to sort of take all that into account also as an artist.
Yeah, it's some serious rejection because a lot of it is coming from a place of your passion and your ability to translate that information. And this is a perfect time to bring up Jeremy's business, which, get this, it's a virtual art studio gallery. So it's a virtual exhibition platform. So
That's
now
amazing. What great timing too, by the way.
Unbelievable. And so I'm excited. Jeremy's going to be on the show, folks, late January, early February. I'll make sure you know. And we're going to talk about how he built his tech business as an artist for virtual exhibitions. So go visit .red.co, everyone, and check it out because it is really cool. A lot of times you want that art gallery experience from the comfort of your tablet.
That's right.
So, Al, you got a question here. The thought of a founder deciding not to become the CEO. How hard is that for the founder? Ooh, do most continue doing what they like and enjoy in the business? And I would add on to that, Al, do they need to move on? I mean, we saw that. We've seen it many times. The founder can grow the business to a certain place. Now you've got a board of directors and folks who are have ownership in your business, and they decide you're not the right person for the next stage of your enterprise to grow in. So, excellent question. What do you have to say about that, Alisa?
Al, it's a fantastic question. I was just on a panel of biotech founders, and we have real talk about this. When, one of the founders really said, I wanted to be the CEO. I wanted to build a big business. And I think it's like a travesty that there's this feeling of like, oh, the founder needs to grow into being the CEO, and it's bad if she doesn't grow into being the CEO. Like somehow it's a failure. It really needs to be, how do you follow your path as a founder and find your highest and best use inside of the business, or to your point, Ande, outside of the business? I was talking to a multi-time founder and an angel investor who said, I found out that my sweet spot is between 0 and 10 million. After that, that was not a place that I was really great to add a lot of value in. I wasn't good at scale. I wasn't good at kind of, delegation, the things you have to do to manage other people. And I always began to think about bringing a professional CEO at that point. He got to know himself. It comes back to self-knowledge and knowing what's the right fit for you. How can you add the most value? And how do you get the most chance of seeing your baby, this idea of yours, come into fruition?
Oh my gosh. And Al, you really brought such a great point up. For my own personal coaching, Alisa, I love the first-time founders, newly minted, someone who's just got this idea, but they're not sure, how do I form it? All of those baby, as I say, I'm good from 0 to 36 months. Bringing it back into parenting terms. And then when they're ready to start scaling and they really need to put certain systems and procedures into place to go that nice, delicious next stage of growth and scaling, I've got great people to send them on to. That's not my strong point. Yeah. And you're right. It's so important to be self-aware. And, and that's what happens to some CEOs. They don't understand, or, founders, they don't understand and they don't want to let go. And
And there's
And
a
it
lot of
hurts.
pressure, right? The board doesn't want them to go. And we have a lot of the myths and the myth making about this wonderful, founder to CEO and Mark Zuckerberg and Jeff Bezos, and I'm supposed to be like them. And not everyone in their heart wants to be that or is cut out to be that. There's so many other ways for you to add value as a founder than be that kind of CEO. And I think self-awareness is the best strategy on that.
That's right. And yeah, Alisa and I have been around long enough to know that there's a period of time in the Harvard Business School where they really focused on that type of CEO that you're talking about there. And in actuality, you need to know what's important to you. If you are building a business that serves your family, you are just as valuable as someone who's going global. If you're there to serve your community and hire a few folks, I get goosebumps over what you're doing. But, there are some founders that are really cut out to go global, and they know it, and they've known it about themselves for a while. It really turns them on and floats their boat. What advice do you have for founders who are now navigating that? They've got things launched, they've got the money, they've got the team going, but they're really needing to step into their authority for the first time. How can they not only step into that and feel really strong in what they've learned, but also on top of that, how can they better communicate with their teams? Initially you just got a few people, it's like a mind meld. You're all kind of working synchronistically and it's all happening, but now you've got more. And not just your teams, but you need to be able to communicate effectively with investors, your board of advisors, et cetera. What thoughts do you have on that, Alisa?
Oh, I have so many thoughts. It's a lot. And I have so many thoughts about that. And to your point, what I tell my CEOs all the time is that it's not enough to say it once. Like, I told them that 3 weeks ago. Yeah. You got to communicate in large meetings, all hands, in one-on-ones, in small groups, in large groups, informally, formally, and in writing. And so you need to remember that what you say doesn't always get through, and you've got to repeat yourself until you're sick of repeating yourself. And that takes a lot of learning, certainly for founders, for CEOs, for all leaders, actually. The second thing is you've got to really own your space. You've got to own your role as a role. So very often, suddenly your company will be achieving and taking off, and you'll still feel like, oh, I'm just still Jenny from the block. Like I'm still just me. And you don't realize that you're the big CEO, you're the founder, your suggestions are orders. It is like you're standing up on a table and with a bullhorn telling people what to do. So counterintuitively, the things that are really important to you, they won't hear them until you're blue in the face. These little throwaway comments that you make will suddenly spin up a whole bunch of work streams. So be mindful of your communication, own your role. And then also I would say it's important to think about your board as another one of your direct reports. So they need to be communicated with. They need to be sort of understood. You need to understand where they're coming from. And you've got to motivate them the same way you motivate your people, because they can help you and be really supportive if they are motivated.
I gotta have to tell you, that is one of the best pieces of advice you will hear Alisa give you today. Because a lot of times, when you get a board on, you've raised millions of dollars, you've got people who you need to report to monthly and definitely quarterly. And so you need to not be like, oh, thank you. Oh, great ones. No, you need to be saying, okay, board. Here's what you need to know. You need to own your role in that CEO position of this company and give them clear marching orders. Again, it's so that they can rise to the occasion and serve the business the best way they know how. I have goosebumps from that, Alisa. Thank you. And what about some of those uncomfortable conversations we have to have? Let's say you brought somebody on that was like your best friend, so to speak, to help you get started, right? And you've got all these great moments that you've percolated and built together over a couple of years. But now they've actually are no longer perhaps doing what they need to be doing. And you've done, I don't know. Do you understand what I'm saying? There's just a lot of
it just feels like you've done this before. It just feels like you're like, oh yeah, this happened once or twice. Yeah, that's a hard one. By the way, when you bring friends on board, or even just close colleagues, or even you become friends with people because they're in the trenches with you and you pizza with them, 7 days a week, and you go to their wedding and whatever. And 2 years go by. And the truth is, your company is enormously successful, even maybe beyond your wildest dreams. You're going to have to find people who've done this before. And that person you hired 2 years ago is probably not that person. So there's a lot you can do. But the first thing to do when you hire new people and on a regular basis is to remind everyone, if we succeed, we earned the right to hire specialists and more senior executives. I'm on a learning journey. You're on a learning journey. And it's going to be helpful for you to realize that and embrace it. And I promise you, I'll find you somebody whom you can learn from.
I don't think I'm going to recover from all the goosebumps I'm having today, folks. I got to can we tell you? All right. I'm going to bring it up. It's got to happen. I'm having an Andelicious moment here. It is so beautiful. Oh my gosh. Can you imagine having that wonderful conversation from day one, founders, with people who mean so much to you, who are growing you, have given up that extra time, that sweat equity that you needed them to initially. And now, you need to bring people in. When you have that as the ground rule, when you start off, that piece of advice, is that, if we succeed, I promise you, I'm going to find the best person for you to grow with. And it is with all due respect.
Oh, yeah.
Because you have to grow this business and you have to bring in the people who at that stage are going to help your business soar. And they got really great skill sets that, your good friend may not have. Oh my gosh. Let me just go to the comment threads. Yes, Jeremy. Own your role. Exactly. Thank you, Al. Yes, it is. I'm covered with goosebumps. Hello, Eric Cox. Now, Eric has a company called Media Prepared, Alisa. Very clearly, it's when you get that mic moment in front of your face as a CEO, you best be ready with these sound bites. And now we know from Alisa, we're going to have some other great sound bites ready for the difficult conversations, for the meetings, for the board. But as a media trainer, I encounter many CEOs who are professionally successful, but personally insecure or awkward. And one doesn't, we got another one right here, necessarily mean the other is true. Wow.
Yeah, very true.
Yeah. And this is why it is such a journey and why the founder journey is, as I said earlier in the beginning, it's the best personal development program out there.
Yeah.
Because you're constantly having to, if you choose to, step up and level up your game and jumping into it again and again. So leadership of any stage of a business is so complicated under normal circumstances. Would you please share a few insights that you have for not just, surviving, but how folks can be thriving during this time when everything has just sort of been thrown up into the air? What's the best way they can lead and thrive during a crisis, AKA right now, a pandemic?
You mean a global pandemic? Yeah, that'll never happen.
That comment.
Well, I would say this: you have to embrace what's happening, and here in the Northeast, for us, that really happened in March, right? So different parts of the world were experiencing in different places, but in March, everybody here had to really embrace this is what's going to happen, and then after a few weeks, this is going to stay around for a while. So, Ande, to your point, how do you lead when you have to throw everything up? You throw everything up. You throw away the playbook and say, we're going to get through this. We're going to create our own playbook. The time is now. And galvanize your team around that. So one way to do that is to make sure that you're caring for the team. Everybody spontaneously invented the daily check-in, right? Starting in March and, really went through the summer. Daily check-in, how are you doing? Build the personal relationships. We're building a remote culture now. What does that mean? Team welfare is paramount. Days off, right? Mental health days. And also understanding the situations that people were having as they were working from home, dealing with health concerns and supervising Zoom school for their kids. So I would say the first thing is to recognize that that is real, to embrace that, and then using that to think about, is what founders do best. If there is no way, I will make a way. and figuring out how to galvanize that and looking at this whole opportunity this whole situation as an opportunity. So many of my clients were like, okay, we can't do this anymore, but the opening is in this side instead. And they've accelerated programs that they wouldn't have accelerated. And that has been a net win for them.
Yep. Love that. And there is another stitch that on a pillow moment with that, with there's a way I will find that way. I'll make that way. What did you say? How did you say that?
Well, when there is no way, I will make a way.
Okay. All right, everybody. That is definitely another stitch that on a pillow moment, because you have to keep reminding yourself that as you're working through all of these challenges that you're being faced with today. Let's talk a little bit about persistence, resilience, tenacity, and not the mythology side of it, right? But the part that you really need to build as a founder.
Well, I think it comes back to basics around self-care. So this is a time to get enough sleep. This is enough time to make sure you're having fitness and to not be drinking so much alcohol and to be eating healthy food. Like, take care of the body, take care of the asset, right? That's very important. And the second is to reframe moments as opportunities. So it's not, oh my God, this is so bad, which it is. It's also an opportunity. If you look at it as an opportunity, you'll find that opportunity. And then you've got to get your team in that same kind of mindset, and then they can support each other and they can support you as well.
Right. Love, 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 folks. Protect the asset. That's you.
That's right. That's you.
You know, you don't have the Secret Service around you to protect you. You have to set those in yourself. Oh my gosh. Hey, thank you for stitching that on a pillow for me, Jeremy. Make a way when there is no way. Yes. Yes. And on Twitch, hey, Lumjacker, so nice to see you. This channel is all about startup life. For first-time founders who are building businesses for the first time, even if you're building a game as a game designer, there are, you have to go through certain steps to build it and sell it to a company. So it's very, very important. And that's what we chat about here. Thanks for asking. I love my Twitch. Oh, yay. Oh, good. Go and stay. I'm here Tuesdays and Fridays. Thank you for that. All right, Alisa, another topic too is networking. So right now, we as founders, you could go and find a founder at some event, and then you could go off to, you could be at a pitch event, whatever. You could go off and have a drink afterwards and commiserate and do all of that. Now we don't have that. And I know that networking is really important to you, and you have some great networking advice. Folks, Alisa is the one who has the Learn to Love networking. Whether you're an introvert or an extrovert, you can do this. And I'm going to pop the link to her wonderful course so you can do this. But what do we need to know for networking online when you're just able to? Yeah,
I know. So I did that course for Knowable, a new audio course startup called Knowable. It's called Learn to Love Networking. And I also wrote an HBR article for how to network when there are no more networking events. So I understand. I feel your pain. 3 things to think about. First of all, up your online game. Connect with folks on LinkedIn. Reach out to them. Reach out to people by email that you have not connected to in a long time. Your dormant ties give you the best opportunities. So what that means is the people you see every day, that's great. But they see the same people you do. They know the same people that you know, same items that you know. Reach back out to people who you don't know that well and who you knew a long time ago to see what they're up to. That will always lead the best opportunities. The second thing is to meet new people on LinkedIn by reaching out and being friendly. The third thing is that you can absolutely have your own virtual cocktails by inviting people who don't know each other, who you don't know well, sort of a Zoom screen, 6 people, 8 people, do introductions, ask one question, and get them off the line. I promise you that will build genuine, authentic relationships, even though we're not in person.
I love that. And Alisa, I've been invited to do a test Glimpses beta program. And Glimpse is a wonderful way. It's another one of these social platforms to get to know each other. And then there's a new startup out of the Harvard Innovation Lab. And it's actually I'm always amazed at this, Alyssa. When someone who has earned an MBA, an MD, and worked as a doctor, they stop everything, just do launch a business. That's to
incredible.
me is mind blowing.
Yeah, really.
But this gentleman, an MD, launched a gamified network place, so you can say, "Hey, meet me in the Tiki Lounge."
Cool. What's it called?
It's called Sophia, SOPHYA, and they're in beta. But it is gamified. So, even though you've got your little frame of your face, you can be, a character. You've got an avatar and you're running around and, having a good time and connecting with folks. So I know a lot of startups are rising to the occasion to help. And of course, here at the Startup Life live show, you can see I pop people's names up. You can share in the comment threads, depending if you're watching in the YouTube or LinkedIn, Facebook, Threads, Twitch. I just met another wonderful person on Twitch. It's a great way to meet folks. We'll go find each other on LinkedIn and begin those collaborations. I love that.
And Ande, can I say one more thing about that? Yeah. You don't have to be best friends with people. That is not the goal. It's nice to become best friends with people. That's great. But the goal is just to be aware of who's out there and to realize that you can be on everyone's team and everyone can be on your team too. So for example, I was on a podcast with somebody, this is already a few months back. Someone reached out to him the next day or two to say he was looking for a coach. He's like, I don't do that. Do you do that? He referred him to me and now he's a client of mine. That I knew this person I'm talking about, total time, an hour and a half.
Right.
And that's the way life works. And it works for you and you can be on everyone's team and they can be on your team too. It's not like a salesy thing.
Folks, remember we had Seymour from South Africa on the show? Brown University's Innovation Lab reached out to him and asked him to speak to their group there. Bug bite thing. Someone bought the bug bite thing right there in the show, had a great testimonial the next day, and they've been connecting. It's just so much fun. Whitney White found somebody on here immediately. You've got to be putting yourself out there, having these conversations, but I love that. You don't need to be besties, everybody. So that's really key. So as we, wrap up this conversation, I don't want to leave our solopreneurs out. And, solopreneurs are working their tails off and they tend to forget to have a team. Mm-hmm. It's one thing if you're building a tech company, a food company, whatever, and you're going to be adding people and bringing them around. But when you're a solopreneur like yourself or myself, what piece of advice do you have for those founders?
Oh, well, so much advice. I mean, first of all, same around self-care, right? Make sure you're protecting the asset. It's even more important when you're the asset and you're not scalable. And I like your point about having a team. Find the people who will do the business aspects that you really don't like and aren't really like a value add for the business. Anyone can do your bookkeeping. Find a virtual assistant because you will be able to have activities for that person to do, including administrative, including like buying gifts and whatnot. Find someone who's technology enabled who can do some small technology tasks for you. Finding ways to take those kinds of routine things off your plate are very helpful. I want to give a shout out also to my buddy, Jenny Blake, who's the author of Pivot, and also has her own podcast. She's a systems geek. If you go to jennyblake.com, you'll see like a lot, hundreds of tools and systems and processes that she personally uses in her own solopreneur.
I love that. I'm going to put that information in the show notes, everybody, jennyblake.com. I love that. Something fierce. Yeah, one of the best pieces of advice I ever got was when someone said, and you solopreneurs, do not go this alone. Yeah. I was like, why didn't I think of that right away? Because I'd never been a solopreneur before. Right. And I immediately, boom, it really helped my business a lot. How has this journey best served you, both professionally and personally, your own founder journey? What have you learned from it? How has it expanded who you are and who you be in the world?
Well, that's the biggest question. I think it's the most important question. I mean, you said earlier, it's about, self-expression. And for me, becoming a coach, running my own business, and kind of fending for myself has taught me a lot through all the ups and downs. And there were times that I was crying in the gym, as I said. I was crying on my hardwood floor in Brookline. I have not had like, oh yeah, just a straight rocket ship. Like most people who aren't always going to talk about it, I've had ups and downs about my own self-confidence. Should I be doing this? Am I really adding value? Mistakes I've made, and getting over those and realizing that those add so much sort of resonance to how you can help. Knowing that I've walked the path myself is, I think, a very, it helps me with my own internal credibility. And it's also about my own self-expression. And the other thing I would say is that I have found that I can pick and choose the things I want to do and call it all work. And that's very exciting.
I love that. And our friend from Twitch here, what challenges have you faced being a solopreneur compared to somebody who has a team?
Well, in terms of having to do most things myself, right? And so or hiring a VA to help me and then figuring how to work with that. I don't have the same sort of reach that, like we talked about before, EMC does, or that Google does, or that, Amazon does. I don't have the same, resources, obviously. But I think the part of the counterintuitive part of that, or the other part of that, is that I can figure out a way to reach my audience, which is maybe more smaller and maybe more loyal and more vibrant. Also, it helps me target my message in a certain kind of way. Also, I'm not constrained by corporate bureaucracy, but I think that there's no question that as a solopreneur, you have to be smart about the way you use your time in a way that if you're in corporate America, you got more leeway.
I think, Lumjacker, often when I started off as a solopreneur, I'd be looking around going, where are my people? It's really understanding. I think systems and procedures are even more important when you're a solopreneur.
Definitely.
So you have to have your week scheduled, you have to have your day scheduled, you have to have your month scheduled, and you have to have the quarter period scheduled. It just has to be that way, or you could just run off. I mean, I set the timer when I go on social media, especially when I go on Pinterest. But Alisa, you have shared so much wonderful advice with us today. I agree 100%. Cody Oakland, great info, so delicious in every way. We're so fortunate to have you come in and help us see the road ahead. So for many of the first-time founders, early stage founders that tune into the Startup Life show, you have given them a roadmap. And of course, now they know who to turn to when it's time for help. How can we add wind to your sails? How can we find you and follow you? I mean, I'll have all of your links in the show notes, folks, and I've popped them into the comment section here. How else may we serve you and help you? The world.
Well, you're so sweet. You can feel free to come on my website, alisacohn.com, and download my Questions to Spark Conversation, which will help you up your game in having conversations at work and also at home, which is pretty important right now in time of social isolation. Feel free to get my course on Learn to Love Networking. And I would love to hear from all of you about what you heard that resonated with you today.
Folks, I have to tell you, I'm a newly minted aware person of Alisa Cohn, but I glopped onto her immediately because she is so approachable, so relatable. You can feel her wonderful, delicious energy online and how she talks to everybody and how she presents her information. And for those of you who are solopreneurs, watch how she shares her brand and her brand promise with everybody and how she be in the world. It's really a great role model. And then, of course, those of you who are building the next best thing, the next global company, you're going to want to bring this woman on board with you, because I don't know about you, but just having those what to say when, write it down, memorize it, whatever you need to do. You don't need to come up with this stuff on your own or learn by having one tragedy after another that will cost you time and money. Bring someone like this phenomenal woman, Alisa Cohn, into your world and, make sure that you have that kind of advice, because you're just not born with it. Okay. You don't have the time to read it either.
Thank you, Ande. We have a mutual admiration society. So
thank you. Well, folks, I have to tell you, as always, such a treat to see you, whether you're, watching the replay or you're here right now. Here's my big virtual hug for you, and deep gratitude that you tuned in to up your founder game, no matter where you are. You could be washing the dishes, you could be driving somewhere, you could be at the pickup line for your kids. just taking a moment to get a nugget like the ones that we heard today from Alisa will serve you and your business. Please be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel. You can see that little subscribe button there. It'd mean the world to me. You know how I serve the world as well as a coach to founders. Let me just pull up my gift right here to remind you. Pitch deck reviews, strategy sessions, on-demand founder coaching, and of course, for you women owners, that WeBank application, right? It's onerous. Let me get you through it because you're going to leave money on the table if you're working a B2B business. Pitch decks, I co-host a monthly pitch event. I've raised millions from VCs, thousands from angels. I know how to make sure your deck is in the best shape for you. I'm a judge at many of the local pitch events here in Boston as well. Give me a shout out. You don't want to go through your whole investor process without making sure you're ready for those tough questions and to make sure you are asking the tough questions of those investors. Get aligned investment money into your business. Okay, so next up on the Startup Life Live show, this is a phenomenal woman out of Africa. This is on December, what is it, the 11th, Friday? Oh my gosh, we're moving so fast. 11 a.m. It's Fab Female Founder Friday with our amazing guest, Edith Najagay. She's the co-founder and CEO of Ariel for Africa, where she is disrupting the future of African entrepreneurship. Her mission is to create 113,000 jobs in Africa through mentorship and funding for entrepreneurs. I know you will love meeting Edith. When she was getting her MBA at the Holt International School in Boston here, oh my gosh, she pitched at our event. She is so engaging and delicious in every way. Here's how you can receive an alert every time to find, this is the challenge of being, the director and the host at the same time. You can join my meetup group, the Startup Life Live meetup group. This way you'll be alerted whenever I post or schedule a new show. Come join the fun. And that way you can come in live or grab it later. And if you want to kick my tires, come on, let's do a 15-minute conversation. Here's the link and we can find out if we're a good fit. And of course, I'd always love to know more about you and what you're doing in the world with your visions. Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. I got to tell you, stay strong, stay healthy, stay focused. Take the advice that Alisa gave us today, right? And implement that into your growth as a founder, because you do. You've got this. Alisa and I both believe in you. We'll see you next time. Okay? Stay tuned. Mwah. Have a great day.